Listen to this track, bitch.
Girl, the way you moving, got me in a trance. DJ, turn me up. Ladies, this your jam. I'm a super scatter. You gon' lose them pants. And I'ma throw this money while you do it with no hands. Girl, drop it.
So our first topic of the Cody's MMA Uncensored episode 2 is UFC on Versus 4 starts to take shape. Now the co-main event looks like it will be Martin Kampmann versus John Doomsday Howard. This fight will be pretty good. Golly, with all you 8 people watching out there, it's a lot of pressure, so I can't speak. You know, it's a lot of pressure being watched by 8 people. I'm just saying. But anyway, it looks like it will be a great fight. I expect John Doomsday to take this one just because I've a little bit of questions about Martin Kampmann's chin. And with John Howard being explosive and as powerful as he is, I don't really see this fight going too long if John Howard can get inside and connect. Martin Kampmann is a very good fighter. You know, I expect him to try to take this to the ground, you know, use his submission skills, but I still am going to have to pick John Howard via TKO. But this is a good fight, and Martin Kampmann's been a big baby about, you know, he thought he beat Diego Sanchez, but we all know he didn't. So that's my opinion. But we'll see if he can, you know, right the ship and get a win over Howard, or if Howard can right his ship, because if I'm not mistaken, he is coming off 2 straight losses against Thiago Alves and Jake Ellenberger. So yeah, this looks like a do-or-die fight for both fighters, and I like John Howard. If Martin Kampmann wins, won't be surprised either, but I still like John Howard. And the main event will be Nate Marquardt dropping to welterweight to take on Anthony Rumble Johnson. I don't like this move by Nate Marquardt at all. I think he was still a viable contender at middleweight, and I think the cut will severely hurt him physically. So if he comes into the fight like I think he's going to, I expect him to get knocked out by Johnson, because I don't think Johnson will take it to the ground with Nate Marquardt, because I think Marquardt would be comfortable there. So, and Dan Hardy, I mean, who are we kidding? He almost caught Anthony Johnson several times in submission. Imagine him taking someone like Nate Marquardt to the ground. Could be pretty bad. So, but if Nate Marquardt can cut the weight right and come in there and be the Nate Marquardt that beat the hell out of Talis Latis, Wilson Govea, Martin Kampmann, you know, the guy that we thought would be the guy who could beat Anderson Silva, I think Anthony Johnson will be in a lot of trouble. I expect it to be a lot like the Josh Koscheck-Anthony Johnson fight, without the, you know, the phantom knee to the eye. You know, I still love you, Koscheck, but a little questionable there. But I think it will be a good fight. I expect Marquardt to submit Anthony Johnson. I don't see him standing up with Johnson. I think Johnson's wrestling will come into play, but I think Marquardt will be strong enough to get it to the ground where he probably will feel more comfortable against an explosive fighter like Johnson. So I don't know what the hell Nate Marquardt is thinking dropping to welterweight. I think, you know, he's had a run of bad luck. I mean, he beat up Chael Sonnen but got wrestled, and we all know how I feel about wrestlers. Go to the WWE, yeah, remember that? So yeah, I mean, and I spoke about it earlier, Talis Latis, he kicked his ass, but if it wasn't for my man Herb Dean, you know, he would have got the nod in the judge's eyes, because Herb Dean took a point away that wasn't necessary. So, and then you should have called me. If he wouldn't have laid back and, you know, Kenny Florian the whole fight, he probably would have won that fight if he was perhaps more aggressive. So, I don't like the move. I guess we're just going to have to wait and see what happens, but, yeah, UFC on Versus 4 looks like they have 2 good fights, and I can't wait to watch it. Our second topic of the Cody's MMA Uncensored, Vitor Belfort versus Vanderlei Silva. Potential rematch might be coming. So there's been talk that Vitor Belfort has asked for Vanderlei Silva for his next fight. And a lot have speculated that this fight will take place on the UFC in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil card. So, I know it's called UFC Rio, but that sounds like a Las Vegas term. So, Dana White said that Vitor Belfort asked for Vanderlei Silva. Now, Vanderlei Silva has not gone on record and verbally or contractually, hey, I said it, agreed to this fight, but a lot of people speculate that it's likely to happen. Now, for you mainstream fans who don't know nothing, Vitor Belfort and Vanderlei Silva fought once before in, ironically, a Brazil UFC back in the day. I'm not sure what number. I'm kind of youngish, so I think I was pretty little when that fight happened, and I just kind of did homework. But basically, within seconds of the fight, Vitor exploded on Vanderlei with some of the fastest hands I've ever seen and knocked Vanderlei out with just, he blitzkrieged the poor guy, and wow, the Phenom of old. A lot of people, it's like, who's going to show up, Vitor or the Phenom? The Phenom showed up in that fight. So I've been personally wanting to see a rematch for a while, just because of how much they have changed as fighters. But however, I don't like it just because being a fan of Vanderlei Silva. Vanderlei Silva, I would bet would lose this fight again, just because he's been knocked out a lot. I think he's a little bit easier to knock out now. So I think Vitor would kind of explode on him, do almost the same exact thing he did last time, and it probably would work. But I guarantee you, up until that point, it would be a great fight. But yeah, I mean, it's not set in stone, but it looks like it's likely to happen. I'm still all for the Chris Leben Vanderlei Silva fight. Hell, I'll even take Vitor Belfort versus Chris Leben. I think that'd be a good fight too. So, sorry, I'm a little tired, but yeah, it would be a great fight to watch. I hope it does happen. It looks like the UFC Rio card is going to be big. There's news that Royce Gracie is going to return to be on it, and I expect a lot of Brazil fighters to be on there, including, of course, Vitor Belfort and Vanderlei Silva. So, yeah, I hope that fight happens. And now, ending the show, as always, it is the Cody's Corner. Now, for those of you who didn't watch the last show, I'm pretty sure a lot of you didn't watch the last show, 8 people. The Cody's Corner is basically, I'll rant about anything I want to. I mean, I like to think outside the box, so I'll even talk about something you might not even thought of or would never talk about in a forum or whatever. Well, today's The Cody's Corner topic is something I like to call the Ultimate Fighter 4 curse. Yeah. It's something I wanted to talk about for a long time. If you go back, can you just go back and just a little bit more. Okay, thank you. The Ultimate Fighter 4, I think, was the worst thing that the UFC ever did from a fighter standpoint. Here's why. First, it screwed 2 fighters. Yeah, 2. Now, if you remember the Ultimate Fighter 4, the comeback, the 2 winners were to get title shots. Now, before this Ultimate Fighter took place, there were 2 fighters who came off of big wins, which, before that big win, they won more. Okay, let's just say they were on hot winning streaks, and it looked like both men were to get title shots. But this Ultimate Fighter 4 happened, then they got new opponents instead of the champions, and they both lost. Those fighters I'm speaking of are Diego Sanchez and Mike Swick. Okay, if you remember, Diego Sanchez was once undefeated, and he was coming off an impressive 2 fights with Carl Parisian and Joe Riggs. He knocked out Joe Riggs, and outside of one round, pretty much dominated Carl Parisian for the second and third. At the time, Carl Parisian and Joe Riggs were two big names and nice fighters to have on your resume. It looked like Sanchez was to fight St. Pierre for the title, but then the Ultimate Fighter 4 happened. Sanchez had to wait his turn, and he ended up fighting Josh Koscheck at UFC 69 and lost. So, yeah, Mike Swick, almost the same thing. Came off of a win over David Loazo, who just got off of fighting for the title against Rich Franklin. A big win at the time, you would say, and it looked like it was going to be him versus Anderson Silva. A la Ultimate Fighter 4 happens, he ends up fighting Yushin Okami, ironically, on the same card, UFC 69, and lost. So, I just think that was a little messed up. I also think it also cursed George St. Pierre, because out of that fight came Matt Serra. Out of that Ultimate Fighter came Matt Serra. And no one will ever admit it, including George St. Pierre, but we all know George St. Pierre took Matt Serra lightly, probably didn't train as hard for as he could, and look what happened. But in a way, it also kind of cursed the rest of the fighters in the welterweight division, because ever since George St. Pierre lost to Matt Serra, he's been pretty much unstoppable. When I think before the Matt Serra fight, he had a lot of holes in his game and was a good fighter, but beatable. So, I just truly think the Ultimate Fighter 4 is a curse. I mean, look at all the fighters out of that cast. Where are they now? I mean, Matt Serra has had somewhat success. Outside of his title win, he's only won one fight against Frank Trigg. Chris Lytle, I think, was the best to come out of the Ultimate Fighter 4, because he has gone on a win streak, and he just recently lost, so, I mean, but he was winning. Patrick Cote, I mean, he got a title shot, but, I mean, he didn't really beat opponents that were that great. He pretty much beat one-dimensional opponents. And where's Dean Thomas? Where's Mickey Burnett? Where's Rich Clemente? I mean, Shoney Carter. I mean, I think the Ultimate Fighter 4 is a curse. I think it's cursed the fighters who came out of that season, and I think it even cursed some fighters who weren't even on that season, but because of the title shot gimmick, you know, things kind of got set in motion. Because who knows what would have happened if Mike Swick fought Anderson Silva after coming off of Anderson Silva, who was coming off 2 knee surgeries, which, you know, played into his poor performance against Travis Lutter. Who knows what would have happened against Mike Swick? Who knows what would have happened against a GSP not Greg Jackson trained, against a Diego Sanchez who looked to be on fire and unbeatable himself. So I just think the Ultimate Fighter 4 was a curse. I don't think it should have ever happened. And that is the Cody's Corner for this episode. Well, speaking of episodes, it looked like this one is over. Finally. So I hope you 8 people enjoyed it. Hopefully I'll get new fans. I'm going to start something different in the next episode to see if I can get my fans involved, and I hope you're enjoying this, because I know I am. I love having an opinion. I love to express it to you, and I hope you'll tune in for the next episode. So this is the Cody saying peace.